Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire release, and as you can see, this time we've got One Eye, and again, it's actually pretty cool that they went ahead and created this one. I feel like this kaiju, I guess you could call it, this giant ape from the film, wasn't really seen all that much, but did have a little bit of a decent role in the movie, so it's nice to see it get a little bit of its due and actually get a release. You can see, again, as far as the packaging goes, looks pretty much like it usually does, and then if we turn it around, you're going to see a nice shot of the figure back here, as well as some information here on One Eye, and then down here a kind of a checklist of all of the other figures that are out currently in this line, which the Drowned Viper we also recently reviewed. So let's pop it out of the box and check it out. So here is our One Eye figure. We have the big bone that he carries around, and then we also have, of course, One Eye himself, and I need to get him standing. There we go. It's actually a pretty decent figure and definitely a fairly decent rendition of that giant ape. It has that sort of like mangy look that one has, where it's got like bald spots on its head and everything, and just a very rough look, obviously, considering it even only has one eye, hence the name. It's definitely a little bit haggard looking, and I think they've captured that overall pretty nicely. I feel like Playmates started out kind of weak with this toy line and are now really gaining traction, which is kind of, you know, at this point, the toy line's been out for a little while. I'm afraid that the toy line might come to an end at some point soon, and we may be seeing the end of the line, but I'm hoping that's not the case, because I would actually love to see Playmates continue on with some more figures in this line. It's not going to be for a little while before we get another Godzilla movie, another legendary Godzilla film, so, you know, it's going to be quite a while before we get this toy line back, so definitely keeping my fingers crossed that they hang on to this a little bit longer. But if we get a nice closer look here, you can see the head sculpt looks about as hideous as you would expect for One Eye. He looks absolutely haggard. There is some decent paintwork on this one, though, which you can see a little variation of browns here in the face. You basically have like a light grayish tone for the majority of the face, but you see a little bit of extra brown here on the snout of our ape, and then even a little more up here on the top of the head, kind of an attempt, I think, to highlight those little areas of hair on the top of the head, but it also has hit the actual head as well. But we've got some slices and scars and basically stuff down here through the face. You can see they are painted out with some reddish tones, making them look like they are kind of fresh injuries. We've also got that, again, blind eye for our ape right there, which you can see looks really cool. The other eye looks pretty decent. The placement of the pupil is okay, doesn't look too bad. And the fact that there is only one pupil on this one, we don't have to worry about how goofy it could look if both pupils were looking in different directions. We can see the teeth right there are sculpted out and painted. They look pretty decent. Unfortunately, there isn't any sort of like an articulated jaw or anything for the figure, which would have been fun, but it's not the end of the world. And again, the teeth are actually, again, pretty impressively painted considering how small they are in there. We do have some fur, again, as you move down here toward the lower jaw and move along the jawline leading up, and we can see the ears sculpted out. We start to get a darker brown as we move back here into the back of the head of this ape, and you can see, again, some more pretty impressive looking fur leading back along that area. As far as the articulation goes for the head, you can turn the head left and right. You can swivel it all the way around if you would want. I don't know if it has any up and down. So yeah, a little bit. You can see just a little bit of up and down movement. And then as you lead down into the body, you again see some pretty decent looking fur. It's not overly impressive, but definitely decent enough. Leading down into the chest, you can see that nice big red mark down over the chest. You can also see, again, the slight musculature of this ape, but it's obviously nowhere near as muscular as you see on Kong, who is just beyond jacked in the movie. We do have, again, that lighter tone moving down into the chest. You can see the darker browns again out there around that area, and then they return in full force as you lead down into the stomach region of this ape. We can also see some very obvious ball joints right here in the arms, which again is how we articulate the arms, but I really wish they would have covered those areas up. I don't think it was necessary to leave the ball joints so visible. I'm not really sure why they would go and do that, but whatever. As you can see, the arms move out away from the body. They're actually really stiff, which is surprising, and they obviously also come forward and back, and can completely swivel around if you want, but definitely some nice articulation there. You can see a little bit more of that light tone moving down into the arm, and again some more fur leading down. And as you can see, again, there's like areas here where fur is missing, and again just continue to show the very haggard appearance of this ape. Leading down, you also have elbow articulation forward and back, and can swivel. And then as we lead down, we still have more of that light tone leading all the way into the hands, where we do return back to that light tone almost entirely, except here on the back of the hand. But again, even the skin detail is very impressive for this figure leading down. Even the fingers themselves, you can see the nails are sculpted nicely, but unfortunately not painted. And we do also have a swivel for the wrist, so you can move that as well. No forward and back motion, unfortunately. And obviously you'll see the same style of articulation for the opposing side. As far as the midsection goes, you can move it left and right, completely swivel it around. You can also go forward and back, so some pretty decent mobility in that area as well. Leading down into the legs, we do see that grayish tone again return to highlight some of the skin of our ape in those bare areas. Unfortunately, there are other areas though that you can see, like here's another area that's bare, another area that's bare here. You can see basically his butt cheek is bare, but they didn't paint all of those areas out, so not every area gets that treatment. Moving along the back, you can see again up here in the back as well some areas where fur is missing and stuff, and you can see the skin, but the skin texture again pretty darn nicely done. This would actually be a pretty fun figure to repaint, and I feel like you could get a really decent look out of this one if you actually went ahead and tried to give it a more realistic paint job. You can see more of that reddish tone moving up and over the top of the arm right here, as well as something I failed to mention, I believe. But as you lead down, you again have leg articulation forward and back. You can also, no, you can't. You can't go out away from the body. It can swivel, which you can see, but only really forward and back. So if you want to go out that way, you just have to swivel it a little bit. And then, of course, you have knee articulation forward and back, and also can swivel. You can actually go really far forward, almost making it look like you break his leg. No ankle articulation or anything as you move down, but you can see, again, we return to that grayish tone for the feet of our one eye. So overall, it's definitely a nice figure, actually. I would say it's even nicer than I was expecting it to be in person. And then we also have the bone, which the bone does have some nice detail to it as well. You can see kind of cracks and crevices, and just like with the ape itself, I feel like a repaint could really do this thing wonders and definitely, again, bring the detail out and make it look a bit more realistic. It's nothing incredible, but it's a nice accessory for the figure. Overall, size-wise, we'll see what it is. I'm thinking it's probably around the same size as Kong, but I can't say for sure. So height-wise, about a little over 5 3/4 inches, approaching 6 inches, but not quite, or around 15 centimeters. For a size comparison, of course, we have to bring in our usuals with Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being, but you can see again, it's pretty much exactly the size range you would expect for an ape in the Playmates Godzilla X Kong toy line. So to get to the actual comparison that I feel like is most necessary, we have our Kong, and as you can see, one eye is basically the same size, just a bit different as far as his proportions go and stuff. Obviously, Kong is beyond jacked, where one eye just looks a little bit sloppy as far as his physique goes, and also, again, just a little bit sloppy as far as his overall appearance goes. But very clearly, again, with this comparison, I think it shows you that we don't really need to go any further with comparisons, because it's very obvious that it's right there in the same size range as the numerous Kongs that have been released from Playmates already. So this brand new Playmates Godzilla X Kong one-eye figure is a very cool figure, honestly. I think it's probably one of my favorites to come from this line in quite a while. I really feel like they're cooking now, honestly. Like, their figures seem to be getting better and better as they go. They started out a little bit slow, I think, with the first few, like the Godzillas were a little unimpressive. The Kongs were always nice. I feel like Kong and Scar King have been, honestly, like the star of the show for this toy line. For some reason, I just feel like those figures are really well done and also sport a lot of articulation and stuff throughout. But it's the reptiles that seem to be getting the shaft for the most part, but that is until recently. Again, we've had some pretty cool ones lately, and the drowned viper was, even though not a great figure because the articulation was a little limited, it was definitely a very cool looking figure. But obviously One Eye as well looks very nice. His sculpt is pretty decently detailed, especially when it comes to his skin texture, but the fur as well looks fairly nice. And what I love most about this one, I think, is the fact that they have included so much paintwork on this. Some of the figures in the toy line earlier on were a little lacking when it comes to paint, whereas this one definitely has a nice fully painted feel. I honestly feel like the only thing that would really have been needed would have been nail paint, and of course the little bit of areas that you see where it's like bare skin could have used that grayish tone too, but it's not the end of the world. Overall, he has a pretty decent paint application with quite a bit of variation of color to him. He also sports some darn nice articulation. The apes in these releases have had excellent articulation pretty much the entire way through, and this one as well sports the same type of articulation you see on Kong and Scar King, so definitely some very nice articulation on top of everything. He's also got a nice little fun extra there with the bone that he can use to club Kong's head in with. But overall, this is a very cool release, definitely a fun one to now add to our Godzilla X Kong collection. So if you are interested, head to your local Walmart, because that is exactly where I found mine, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.